I want to ask you a question. How good is your sleep? Do you sleep well, wake up refreshed? Or do you struggle to sleep? Do you struggle to get off to sleep? Or do you wake up many times during the night? Either of those scenarios, it's exhausting for us, isn't it? And we need good quality sleep for both our physical and our mental health. So I'm going to talk through with you today some of the things that might be causing you to have poor sleep or disrupted sleep, and some really practical strategies that you can start to put into place right away that's going to help you. So there's two key things to understand when we're talking about sleep, because sleep is a really complex process that goes on in our bodies. And the two key things to understand are the fact that we need to have exposure to light in the daytime and exposure to dark at nighttime. And you might think, well, that's really obvious, Liz. Of course, it's light in the day and it's dark at night. But because of our modern living, that's not always the case. Some people work at nighttime. Some people work late into the night. And when our bodies are supposed to be asleep, we're awake. And when we're awake, when we're supposed to be awake, we're asleep. So we're going to look into both of those things today. If you're struggling to get to sleep, or if you're waking up a lot, it starts this vicious cycle, doesn't it? You get exhausted, you get very tired. So in the daytime, you're trying to do things to keep you awake and stimulate your brain. But sometimes those things have a long-term impact during the day on how you then can sleep at night. We don't make good decisions when we're tired, do we? And we all want to be making better decisions in our life. That then leads us to make really poor choices. And that's something that I'm going to talk about in relation to food choices in particular, because what you eat has a huge impact on the quality of your sleep. Now, that might surprise you. You might think, well, how on earth does what I eat affect my sleep? And I'm going to show you why that's the case. And there might be specific nutrients that you're missing that can help you get better quality of sleep. And I'm going to, again, later on in my little chat with you today, I'm going to talk about what those might be. So why is sleep such a problem for us? Well, modern living is challenging. And we are actually living, I believe, in a way and in an environment that is very far removed from how we are supposed to be living. If you think about the changes that have taken place, even in the last 50 years, never mind the last 100 years, humanity has made huge changes, and our bodies and our rhythms, our circadian rhythms, have not caught up with it. We are still living, we are still programmed to live as we did 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. So our bodies are living in this environment that is actually quite detrimental to our health in lots of ways. The light bulb, good old Thomas Edison and his 10,000 ways that he managed to get the light bulb to work, an incredible invention, but it has meant that our daytimes and our night times can sometimes get quite disrupted. We're often every day, we have these inputs, whether it's an email or a notification or someone sending us a text message or a WhatsApp message, or something pings up on our Facebook feed. We are constantly getting stimulated, which again, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, that didn't happen. And when you are constantly being stimulated, your brain is constantly on alert. It's very hard to sleep if you're on alert all the time. And I'm going to be suggesting some ways later on. So stay till the end, and I'm going to be suggesting some ways later on that you can help to overcome that. Blue light. Now, you may have heard of blue light. So blue light is the light that is emitted from mobile phones, iPads, computers, television screens. And why that's a problem is that it can interfere with our production of melatonin. You've probably heard of melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that our body produces, which helps us in our 24-hour cycle and helps us with our sleep. And if we don't have enough melatonin, we don't sleep very well. So if blue light is stopping you from developing and producing melatonin, that's going to affect your sleep. So we need to look at your exposure to blue light. Shift work is a problem as well. If you happen to be a shift worker, you're asleep when you should be awake, and you're awake when you should be asleep. So shift work is quite a problem for people. Mental health issues, they also have a big impact on sleep. If you're feeling constantly anxious, or you're depressed, or you're very stressed, that's going to have a big impact on your sleep patterns. And I'm going to be suggesting ways that we can help with that as well later on. Another thing that's really important is meal timings and when you're eating your meals. Now, you might be the sort of person that likes to eat their evening meal at 6 o'clock and you're finished by 7 o'clock. Perfect. If you're the sort of person that likes to eat a little bit later, that's when problems can start to arise as well. Because if you eat a meal later at night, your body then has this dilemma. Do I digest the food that's in my system? Or do I put the energy in the body towards the stuff that your brain actually needs to do overnight to get you good quality sleep and to process various things in the day? And it's a bit of a dilemma. So eating late at night, snacking in front of the television, which maybe you're guilty of, that's really, really bad for the quality of your sleep. I'm going to suggest ways that you can overcome that. So splitting this energy between digesting and working on the brain and doing what the brain needs to do overnight, that's quite an issue for our bodies. So I've just mentioned there the fact about eating, and what you eat has a huge impact on the quality of your sleep. Now, that might be quite a revelation for you, but in all the research that I've done, looking at what we're eating, what we're not eating, what we're drinking and what we're not drinking, and I don't mean alcohol here, I mean just liquids, have a really big impact, because some of the hormones that we produce in our bodies, we need the nutrients from food in order to manufacture them. And if we're not getting the right nutrients, we can't make the products. Hormones are basically chemicals that our body produces that allows our body to behave in a certain way, to feel in a certain way, for processes to take place in a certain way in the bodies. But we need to have the raw ingredients in order to make those chemicals, those hormones. So if we're not getting the right amount of if we're not getting the right amount of ingredients, we're not going to be making the right amount of chemicals. So what kind of foods do we need to be eating to make sure we get the raw materials? So you need to be looking at things like fibre. Do you have enough fibre in your diet? Do you have enough complex carbohydrates? I'll explain what complex carbohydrates are and what you can eat later on. But complex carbohydrates, because they actually lower your cortisol levels. And cortisol is a stress hormone. So just by eating differently, you can actually reduce your stress hormones, which I think is a great thing to be doing. Magnesium, quite a lot of women in particular are low in magnesium. So supplementing with magnesium would be a good idea if you're struggling with your sleep. Always talk to somebody professionally trained. Don't just go and pick any old supplement off the shelf and start taking it. You need to have advice on what to take. So don't just go and take some supplements without talking to somebody specially trained in that. And as I just mentioned, we produce melatonin. Now, melatonin is produced by our body adding lots of ingredients, and there are certain ingredients that come from things like, and I'm reading this to make sure I don't forget anything, things like sunflower seeds, mushrooms, broccoli, leafy greens. Those sorts of things contain something called tryptophans, which help us to make melatonin, and we need the melatonin to get good sleep. So the other thing we need to look at is what you're drinking or not drinking. And again, I'm not talking about alcohol here. How much water are you drinking in the day? If you've been to any of my masterclasses, you'll know I talk about this all the time. And I talk about it all the time because it's super important. Most people don't drink enough water. Water is vital for our brain and our body to function properly. So how much water are you drinking in the day? Don't down a pint of water before you go to bed because you're going to be up all night going to the toilet. Drink water constantly throughout the day so that you are constantly keeping yourself hydrated. Other things that are really useful to help with sleep are lemon balm tea. Lemon balm is a lovely drink that you can buy in a tea bag, and that's very good at helping to induce sleep. Chamomile tea and lavender tea. Those are also great things to be drinking rather than caffeine. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good cup of tea, but I don't drink coffee because I don't like coffee, but tea and coffee obviously contain caffeine, and a lot of people like caffeine because they like that stimulating feeling that you get when you've been drinking caffeine. And you may find that if you are really struggling with your sleep, you are drinking more caffeine in the day to keep yourself awake because you're struggling to stay awake and you need to have that boost to get you through the day. The problem with caffeine is it has something called a half-life. And what that means is, say you drink a cup of coffee at 7 o'clock in the morning. By 6 hours later, you still have half of that caffeine in your body. So if you've had 3 or 4 cups of coffee before midday, 1 o'clock, you're still going to have each of those, you're going to have half of the caffeine left 6 hours, 7 hours later. Some people it's even longer. So even though you might think, well, I've not drunk a coffee for 6 or 7 hours, half of that caffeine is still going around your body. So if you have a cup of coffee at 6 o'clock at night, you've got half that amount of caffeine in your system still at midnight. And we know caffeine is a stimulant, so you're going to struggle to go off to sleep if you've got half a cup of coffee's worth of caffeine still in your body. So think really carefully about how much caffeine you're drinking and when you are having your last coffee. Because when you have your last coffee or your last tea, remember there's a half-life there. So it's at least 6 hours. In some people it's more, some people it's less, but most people it's around about 6 hours, possibly 7 hours that they still have that caffeine in their system. So you really need to avoid caffeine in coffee and tea after midday. Spicy foods don't help. Spicy foods can often lead people to have sleep difficulties. Energy drinks, obviously, there's a reason why they're called energy drinks. They often have a lot of caffeine as well. So if you are having a lot of coffee and you're having a lot of energy drinks, it's not going to be helping you sleep, is it? So cut out the energy drinks. I would say cut them out altogether. They really are not good for our bodies. The amount of rubbish that's in them, I would say don't have them at all. Acidic foods can be the sort of lemony foods later on in the day. They can affect our sleep pattern as well. And foods that are high in saturated fat, so lots of meat, lots of dairy, they again can tend to interfere with how we're sleeping. The worst sleep, the research has shown, is if you have a low fibre and a high saturated fat diet. So you really need to be looking at what your diet is. Exercise is really good for helping us sleep better at night. So I'm going to be moving now into things that you can do to help yourself. So exercise is really important because it stimulates the body and it also can genuinely make you feel quite tired. Your body needs to repair. Exercise, particularly in the morning, is a really good thing to be doing for 2 reasons. It wakes you up for the day and it also starts to set your rhythms off better. If you're exercising at late at night, your body is going to be sending out quite a lot of the stress hormone still, because although exercise is good for you, it is a form of stress on the body. So you don't really want to be stressing your body when you're trying to calm down. So sometimes if I'm driving around at night time and I'm seeing people at kind of 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 going for a run, I'd love to shout out the window and say, you shouldn't be running at this time of night. It's not good for your bodies to be running at that time of night. If you're going to exercise, as early in the day as you possibly can, preferably in the morning. Now, the morning is another great time because, and this is going to sound really crazy, but bear with me. What the research says is that when you get up in the morning, if you can get morning sunlight, well, I have to say morning light because here in the UK, we don't often have a lot of sunlight first thing in the morning, even in the summertime. Getting morning light into your eyes is really powerful for allowing you to sleep better at night. And I know that sounds crazy, but basically, when we wake up in the morning, our body is preparing to go to sleep at night. And all the little things that you do during the day are preparing your body for sleep at night. And morning sunlight has been proven, exposure rather to morning sunlight, has been proven to help you sleep better at night. So how do I do this? In the summertime, I will go outside when I've woken up with my big glass of water, not my cup of coffee or tea, big glass of water, and I will sit outside for 10-15 minutes drinking my water. I tend to do a meditation at that time of day because it just works for me. Another great tip. And I'll just be outside for 10 minutes. Now, I know it's not always possible for everyone to have 10 minutes outside in the morning. It's more difficult in the winter because obviously it's darker in the mornings. So maybe there's some way halfway through your morning that you can get outside and get some sunshine, some sunlight into your eyes. It makes a huge difference to how you sleep at night time. So what else can we do to help with your sleeping at night time? So I've spoken about getting some morning light and exercise. Keeping your room at a temperature around about 18 degrees, not too hot and not too cold. 18 degrees has been shown to be a good temperature to keep your bedroom at. So try and get it around about 18 degrees. Some people benefit from a weighted blanket. There's lots of research into this, and I won't go into the details of why a weighted blanket might help you, but a weighted blanket can be really helpful for helping you get off to sleep. It reduces stress on the nervous system. So that's another great thing to be doing if you're trying to get better quality sleep. Make sure your nervous system isn't on full alert. Obviously, reducing blue light. And you've heard this before, and you'll hear it again from me many times and from other people. Turn all your devices off at least an hour before you go to bed. And if you're thinking, well, I know I like to scroll through when I'm in bed. Bed is for sleep and sex, not for scrolling, not for watching TV. It's for sleeping. So get your body associated with bed as a place for sleep, not a place for stimulating your mind with your phone. If you use it as an alarm, that's fine, but put it somewhere where you can't get at it easily. If you wake up in the night, I really, really encourage you not to go on your phone. I am guilty of this sometimes. If I wake up in the night and I just think, oh, I'm just going to check. It doesn't work. I'm then awake for hours. So I have trained myself now in the middle of the night. I do not turn my phone on. Because I know I won't be able to get back off to sleep again. So if you genuinely want to get better quality sleep, don't scroll on your phone at night time, and don't go on your phone in the middle of the night when you wake up. So no blue light. If you do wake up in the night, what is recommended to do is, if you're lying there for longer than 20 minutes, to get up and to go to a different room, because we want to associate bed with sleep. So go to a different room in your house. Keep yourself warm, but not too warm. And don't go on your phone. Don't do anything stimulating, but just sit and read a book or listen to something really boring. So not a stimulating podcast. Maybe it's some like relaxing music. Maybe it's a boring podcast. Maybe it's a news program that's really not that interesting. You don't want anything in the middle of the night that's going to stimulate you. And then when you start to feel sleepy again, go back to bed. Try not to go back to bed before you get sleepy, because then again you'll just be in that cycle of not being able to get back off to sleep. So go to bed when you start to feel sleepy. Try not to fall asleep in the chair you're sitting in, and then see if that works. You may have to do this a few times because you're retraining your body to sleep at night time. But not stimulating yourself during the night, as in going on your phone or reading something, really beneficial. And if I just kind of take a step back from there, if any of you have children, or you know you're a grandparent and you have grandkids, or you have cousins or nieces and nephews, you know that little kids have a bedtime routine. And at some point in life, we stop having a bedtime routine. And I'm going to encourage you to start your own bedtime routine again. So, things to include in your bedtime routine: not drinking caffeine at least 6 hours before you're going to bed, preferably not after midday. Turning off your blue light at least an hour before you go to bed. Not snacking at night time, finishing your meal early so that you're not tempted to, so you don't eat anything later on a night, certainly not after 7 o'clock at night. Some people recommend a warm bath or a warm shower, not hot, but that can sometimes help, because what it does when you come out of that is it lowers your body temperature, and our body temperature needs to lower to go off to sleep. And read something before you go to bed. Don't look at anything stimulating, but read something before you go to bed. That can be very good as well. Now, people sometimes say, oh, I can get really engrossed in a book. If that's the case, read something boring. Don't go for the most stimulating book you can find. Read that during the daytime. Go for something boring at night time if you're going to get engrossed in a book. And remember that bed is for sex and sleeping. It's not for watching TV. It's not for scrolling on social media. So that's a quick 20 minutes on hopefully how to improve the quality of your sleep. Please reach out if you need any more help. I have really just scratched the surface with how I can help you with your quality of sleep. So if you need any more advice, please reach out and let me know how you get on with some of these tips. I would really like to know what difference it makes to your sleep.